Of the 23rd of October, and this is our regularly scheduled meeting for the Citizens Advisory Committee. And so first of all, we'll ask for any public comment. Okay, I see no one public present for that. Now, we have some new members this evening, so that's a red letter day for us, and I'd like to introduce them and ask them to give us a little summary about themselves so that we can get to know them a little bit. And we'll start with Claire Linder from Concord.
Hello. Hi, my name is Claire Linder. I'm from the city of Concord. I served on the city's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee in 2016 that adopted the city's first bike ped master plan. My interest in transit is a lot of my adult life I didn't have a car, so I've always had Plan B in my head. Could I ride my bike? Could I take a bus? How could I get to work, grocery store, etc., without a car? And I currently commute by bike from my home in Concord to my office in Walnut Creek. I'm also interested in the health aspects of active transportation. I'm married to someone who has type 1 diabetes, and the activity and efficiency provided by bicycle commuting is very important to me, and I'm interested in safety and access issues for active transportation for all users.
All right, thank you, Claire. And from the city of San Ramon, we have Billy Hurley.
Good evening. Like Larry said, my name is Billy Hurley from the city of San Ramon. I've only been in the Bay Area for about 2.5 years. Born and raised in the East Coast, spent some time in the South. I do logistics for the United States Army. So transportation, while it's a little bit different type of transportation, moving equipment, I still move equipment, people. So transportation in general just interests me. I live in San Ramon, work down in Dublin, bike it there every day. So very interested in bikeable areas like Claire over there. So I serve on the San Ramon Transportation Advisory Committee as well. I'm just here to see how I can give back to the community.
All right, thank you, Billy. And from the city of Danville, Mark Isola. There's a button you turn on.
Got it, thank you. So Mark Isola from the town of Danville. I'm a lifelong Bay Area resident, grew up in Lafayette. I've lived in Danville for approximately 16 years. I commuted for 12 of those years from Danville to San Jose, so that's where I got a lot of my experience with transportation and traffic issues. Now work in Walnut Creek, so much easier, much simpler commute, but still interested in those topics. And this is my first foray into any type of volunteering for an authority or any commission in the town. Thank you.
Welcome to all three of you. Thank you very much. Moving along with the agenda, we have an approval of summary of actions. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from the last meeting? Are there any additions or corrections? Deletions? No? Okay. Can I have a motion?
I move, Larry, we adopt the agenda.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And did you get those, Fifi? All right. So all those in favor of approving the minutes for the meeting?
Aye.
Aye? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, one abstention. Yolanda. I guess as sort of a footnote right now, our new members since we've been unable to swear you in just yet, you can't partake in votes. But we don't have any other than the minutes tonight. We don't have any action items, so we're good. All right. All right, general business, the attendance log. If you would have a look at the attendance log and see that it's accurate as to yourself. Any corrections, do you think, applying to yourselves? Okay.
Nothing that applies to me, Chair, but for the town of Danville, that needs to be changed, the name.
And for Hercules, myself, I was present in June. So.
Okay. All right. So I guess we've taken. Are we having a senior month?
A senior moment. Was I here in July? You don't think so? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The meetings are recorded, so we can always look at the footage.
And Chair, also a good reason to remind everyone to sign in so that if there is a question about attendance, your signature is a document that you've been here.
All right, that's a good point. For the new members, we do have a check-in sheet back there for reimbursement of travel expenses. So please sign off on that each time that you attend a meeting. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is our meeting calendar. Well, we have tonight's meeting, of course, but we don't have another meeting until December. There is no meeting scheduled for November. And the December meeting will be scheduled on the 11th. Okay? I myself have a conflict. I won't be able to attend that meeting. But we have an able vice chair. And he's taking lots of notes tonight. Okay.
Is there a way you hit the gavel?
Right-handed. Okay. Next on our agenda are major discussion items. First of all, project update. The authority staff will provide an update on a regionally significant project under development, namely the Star Route 4, State Route 4. I'll never be able to pronounce that.
McCollum.
Help?
Which?
McCollum?
McCollum.
McCollum? And it's a bike trail pedestrian overcrossing in Brentwood. And we have Stephanie Hugh. Who?
Who?
Okay.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me tonight, and happy to just provide an update on this project that the authority is working on. Again, my name is Stephanie Hugh. I'm the senior engineer at the authority. So the project location is in the city of Brentwood, as shown on the map here. Which one's there. So it's south of Lone Tree Way and north of Sand Creek at the intersection of Highway 4. The project is proposing to construct a bicycle pedestrian overcrossing that will span over Highway 4 in this location. It will bridge an existing gap in the McCollum Trail. There's a picture. Okay. So the actual trail name for the McCollum Trail is actually Coast to Crest Trail. There's an effort by a nonprofit organization called McCollum Coast to Crest Trail Council that's been working on completing a 300-foot long trail that goes from the San Francisco Bay Area to the Sierras. So our POC, or pedestrian overcrossing project, will complete a small gap in this overall endeavor. This is a closer aerial view of the existing condition and the existing McConley Trail. You can see that in the middle there, that's Highway 4, that's bisecting the bicycle trail or pedestrian trail. So there on the east side there, where the leader just came up, this is, if you're on the east side looking west, so if you're walking along this trail here, you're going to hit this concrete wall, which is right there in this aerial photo, or this photo, street view photo from Google. So while you're walking or biking on this trail, you're basically stopped because you hit this huge concrete wall. That's a Contra Costa Water District facility. And then on the west side, if you're driving down Highway 4 on an eastbound direction, if you look to the right or to the west, you'll see there's this paved area. That's the end of the trail. So the existing condition is that the Highway 4 is bisecting the trail and people can't cross over the highway. And the goal of the project is to bridge this gap. So just a little bit of a project background. As you saw, the trail currently is bisected by the Highway 4 bypass, and the pedestrian overcrossing was a planned component of the Highway 4 bypass project. It was noted in the EIR as a mitigation measure. It's been a long time since the authorities worked on this project, but the project was put on hold in 2014 because there was a funding shortfall. We got up to 65% design and we had to stop because there was no more funding. But during the project's hiatus, the city of Brentwood embarked on a specific plan effort for an area that's called Priority Area 1 by the city of Brentwood. The specific plan was adopted in November 2018. And it identified the area just directly adjacent to the pedestrian overcrossing as a future Brentwood Intermodal Transit Center. The transit center would serve bus services in the area, as well as accommodate BART extension if it does continue on from Antioch. So given this latest development, there was a need to resurrect the project, not only to bridge for the bike ped access, but also for this future transit center. So in order to bridge the funding gap, BART stepped in as a funding partner. In their next segment study, the area directly adjacent to the pedestrian overcrossing was identified as the next station or potential next station. So there was interest from BART to complete the design for the pedestrian overcrossing. They contributed $200,000 from the general fund, and they also contributed $150,000 from their Measure J BART program, and that was with the East County Regional Transportation Planning Committee Transplants concurrence. So together, the $350,000 enabled us to restart the project or restart the design process. And also another funding partner is ACRAFA, which is the East Contra Costa Regional Fee and Financing Authority. They are contributing staff time to, and also funding to acquire properties that are needed, and also the right-of-way support efforts. Okay. So this is the layout of the proposed pedestrian overcrossing. The new trail is about 2,600 feet long, and it includes about 850 feet of structure. So you see in brown there, that's going to be a bridge, and the yellowish area is at Gray Trail or fill. The existing trail right now follows the existing East Bay Mud Aqueduct or right-of-way. And because these are large structures, we had to avoid, the structure needs to avoid that corridor here. So you see, while we follow this existing alignment, when we peel off from it, we needed to stay away from this East Bay Mud corridor here. So the bridge is well away from that. And also, as we mentioned, there was this huge concrete wall here that we saw earlier in the earlier slide, so the trail goes around it, so providing access for bicyclists to go around that wall. The future transit center that I mentioned is located on the bottom left here. And our project is going to include a graded path here that, in the future, if this is a transit center, there will be a path that gets from the trail down to this transit center here. So we're just going to pave it and not grade anything. And in the future, if the transit center comes through, they can modify and pave that access there. The intention is to have the transit center to provide bus services at first, because it will take a while for BART to extend to this area if they do. However, the design is done to not preclude BART extension down to this area or down the median Highway 4 here. So the bridge is slightly wider here, which is 16 feet, with the potential of it being access to a median station down below. So if you're familiar with the Pittsburgh Civic Center station, the access to the platform is down overcrossing, so it'll be similar. So the structure is designed to accommodate that or not preclude that possibility. The bridge is also going to be able to take the loading of any armored truck that will be needed to access the ticketing machine with cash loading. And also the bridge also includes conduits for future BART utilities. The map also shows some of the right-of-way takes that we need. So the purple-ish color and the light blue, those are properties that need to be acquired. So those are, again, done by ACRAFA, the East County Financing Authority. And the yellow is the construction easement areas, temporary construction easement areas. And then to the far right, these small areas are minor easements from Contra Costa Water District and the East Contra Costa Irrigation District. So these are just a few of the cross sections. Again, on the bridge, this larger section shows the 16-foot wide path. So that's room for bike ped as well as BART passengers if this turns out to be an access or egress for BART when it comes in, if it comes. And then the other sections are showing 12-foot wide minimum. And then as it transitions back to existing condition, it will narrow it down back to 10, which is the current condition. This is a profile of the trail. Again, you see these large pipes. Those are the East Bay mud conduits, as mentioned, that we need to be when it's at grade, we can be over them, but it can't be under the structure with the loading. So you see when this is the bridge area, the conduits are not there. And then when we come back down, again, these we appear because we'll be at grade by then. The grades are about 4.9%, so that meets the ADA requirements of 5% maximum. So moving forward, we completed the 100% design. The construction cost is approximate $8 million currently. The current estimate is $8 million. We've completed a constructability review with our construction team at the authority. The authority is also facilitating a maintenance agreement between Caltrans and the city because the bridge spans over Highway 4. The city really wanted Caltrans to be responsible for the structural integrity of the structure, and Caltrans has agreed to do that. So anything structural related or structural integrity related, Caltrans has agreed to take that on for maintenance. And anything above deck, so any like fencing or graffiti or trash, the city will be taking that responsibility. Right of way is driving our schedule right now. We're hoping to wrap that up hopefully by the end of the calendar year. And in terms of funding, the Regional Measure 3, there is $15 million for the Brentwood Transit Center. We're hoping that some of that or most of that will go towards the construction of this pedestrian overcrossing since it's related to the transit center. And then we're working on the final PSN plan specs and estimate in order to provide a construction documents for construction. And our hope is that with funding in place and the right-of-way taken care of, we can hopefully start construction in the summer of 2020. And then with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have, and I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. That was a nice presentation. And you answered my question at the very end. I wondered about the to-be-determined funding, and you took care of that. So,
yeah, our hope is, RM3, if you don't know, it's in litigation. So, we're hoping that can wrap up soon, and then we will have access to the dollars in order to construct this
okay.
much-needed project.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Stephanie?
I do.
Okay. Zane?
So the transit center that's going to be built adjacent to the crossing, do you know what main roads would intersect at the transit center in Brentwood?
I think next to the west side is Hydorn. I don't have a map, but I can. We have some conceptual design done. So if you're interested, I can provide that. But the road would be to the west, parallel. Let's see if there's a map. I think I have a map in the beginning. Yeah, no, that's as far as it goes. So. There's a road here. I think it's called Hydorn. Mm-hmm. There's this, I think I would say Home Depot. Or there's a shopping plaza up here, and Lone Tree's here. I'm pointing to the ceiling, but Lone Tree's here, and then this is Hydorn. Oh, I think I do have a map. Hold on.
Okay. My curiosity is fulfilled. So it's going to be on the Lone Tree side, because we have the transit center already by Sands Creek and Central Avenue.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's going to be somewhere near Lone Tree.
Yeah, okay, this is it. I do have a map. So, yeah, I think what the city is, their vision is to have an access, sorry, my hand's shaky, but from here down to here. So this is Hydorn, I think.
I see. That's part of the land that they're redeveloping where they're building the village shopping. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Yes.
Yes, Ed Miller from Clayton. I just wanted to ask quickly, there's some eminent domain, I guess, that you said. There's some land that has to be acquired, an easement or something. Is that private or commercially zoned?
It's owned by actually, there are two property owners. They're both private citizens, I would say, but they own the farms. So
okay.
These are
farms.
ag land. Yeah. So their property is one here and one here.
Okay.
And they both, from my understanding, they're farmers.
Yeah. Okay. And that answers my first question. Thank you very much for that. The other question was along the lines of BART jumped in to participate in this, which surprises me a little bit in the sense of, not to belabor it, but it took a very, very long time, of course, for EBART to happen. That was, in excess of many years. Does this indicate any kind of, not urgency, but intention to commit to that extension on their part in the very near future?
I wouldn't say, well, I can't speak for BART, but I don't know if you can label it as a commitment, but they were very interested in developing a transit center or support of the transit center, and the pedestrian overcrossing would be a connection for the bike ped access and egress. And I also wanted to, I should have included that part of that contribution also included a small task of providing a conceptual design for the transit center, like how buses will go and where parking, how many parking stalls would be able to fit in that area. So there's some gains from them contributing for us to kind of take a look at, because we already had a consultant on board and they're familiar with the project, so it made sense for them to do like a little quick and dirty conceptual design for that area to the bottom right left there. So I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's a commitment per se, but it is in their next segment study, and this area is a potential station for them.
Yeah, I know that I believe this particular area came up in a previous meeting and discussion, because we were discussing ideas, I think, about possible locations for additional BART parking off-site, shuttle or something for as an e-BART thing. Anyway, I appreciate you entertaining my questions. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, Stephanie, hi. Yolanda Vega from the city of Lafayette. I have a few questions for you. One of the things that I want to ensure that when you look at bus service, when BART actually does place their station there, that you do have bus service that goes and serves the community. Because if you're looking at pedestrian way, you're not mitigating traffic. And so you would mitigate traffic if you have bus service and that you have scheduled and that it runs on time. Not like we have in my city, which is a joke. Also, you mentioned that the land is, I just wanted to touch base with something that Ed had said. That land is farmland, so it's targeted for residential and commercial development?
Well, I mentioned that the city had gone through a specific plan effort, and in that document, this area is zoned in different ways than it is now. So, and I don't have that with me, but yeah, this whole area is going to be transit village / like multimodal, multi-unit type of area versus what's currently, obviously. So, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I'm just curious as to what the plans are. My guess is that you're going to be looking at certainly some type of residential, some type of affordable housing, quote unquote, and then certainly commercial.
Yeah, from my understanding, my recollection, that whole area is going to be multimodal / multi-unit, like a TOD, transit-oriented development area here of the city. And then relating your question about bus services, I wanted to note that when we developed the conceptual design for the transit center, Tri-Delta Transit was involved. So they're aware that if there is a bus transit services here, that obviously they would serve the community by having schedules that fit the community. But I'm happy to relay that message too.
Would you please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, and I don't have a problem you telling them what I said.
I don't have a problem relaying.
I'll stand in front of anybody. I don't care. The other thing is just out of curiosity, really. You were mentioning the concrete wall. What's the concrete wall for? I mean,
It's
that
like
you
an
sort of went
irrigation-
around it?
It's an irrigation facility owned by, not irrigation, sorry, water district. It's not irrigation. It's the Contra Costa Water District facility.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? Yes, Claire? That's okay. Huh? It's okay to ask. Yeah.
Hi, Claire Linder, Concord. I had, Ms. Vega, I had the same question, like if it was possible to go through the wall.
No, it's pretty high up. Yeah, you cannot go through the wall.
Okay.
Therefore, we had to. So it's kind of hard to see, but it's right. It's kind of white here. This huge white thing, that's a wall. It's high. Yeah, you couldn't climb it or scale it.
So just,
But I've heard people have tried, and people do get up there. For I don't know how.
I meant like punching a hole through, because I see there's like this big
punch a hole.
detour, and it just doesn't seem like it's like it's containing anything.
I think it links to a treatment plant, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
it's either like a pump or something. Yeah, you couldn't go through it.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could, we definitely
There's
would
most
have.
likely aqueducts.
Because otherwise,
okay.
because then where's that map? Yeah, we basically had to go around. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging my curiosity.
Yeah.
And then I had two other questions. One is about lighting, and then my last question would be, what would be the next steps forward?
Lighting, at the moment, we're not proposing any lighting because I think East Bay Park District, their trails are not lit during nighttime. Basically, it's closed when it's dark. There is not going to be lighting at this time, but when BART comes through, that's another
Kettle of fish.
another I would think they would provide lighting in the dark because then BART would be operating, and when people get out of the station, there should be light on the pedestrian overcrossing.
Right.
But at the moment, without BART coming in or Transit Center coming in, there would not be any lights. Just like the Iron Horse Trail, there isn't any light.
That's
Besides,
the
like,
problem. I take that trail
Yeah,
at night. I
understand.
commute. I mean, it's
It's
dark.
dark, yeah.
when I get out of work. So
Understood, yeah.
that's hence my curiosity.
Yeah. And your third question, you had
My
another-
third question would be like, what would be the time frame going forward? Like, when would construction
Okay,
potentially
so
start?
the right of way, we're hoping to wrap up hopefully by end of the year, if everything goes smoothly. And then our hope is to, and then if funding comes through, we're hoping summer 2020 to start construction.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank
I
you.
don't think
Thank
there
you.
are any other questions, so we'll let you relax for the rest of the year.
Thanks. Thank you for your time.
Okay, our next item on the agenda involves Envision Contra Costa 2040. And is it Will Nelson? Will be giving us a presentation on that. We got nothing here. Here it is. There it is.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Will Nelson. I'm a planner with Contra Costa County, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and present Envision Contra Costa 2040 to you. The project consists of 4 parts: a general plan update, zoning code update, climate action plan update, and an environmental impact report covering the 4 of them. And if there are any questions along the way, I don't know how you'd like to do it. Answer. I don't have
If
a
you're
preference.
comfortable answering questions as you go.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the 4 elements of Envision Contra Costa. For those of you who may not be familiar, what is a general plan? It's often referred to as the constitution for a jurisdiction's development. It's the highest land use document that a jurisdiction will adopt. And so it establishes, as we see here, in this case, the county-wide goals and supporting policies and actions, provides direction for future development, balances growth, conservation, and quality of life, and documents the baseline conditions for the year that it's adopted. And I should point out at the beginning that this is for unincorporated Contra Costa County. So none of this effort affects what goes on in the incorporated cities in terms of land use. So why update the general plan? Well, these 3 pictures tell the story. It was adopted in 1991, so we still had a Soviet Union. Cheers was the #1 show on television, and we still use those things at the bottom to communicate. I'm told they're called public pay telephones. The components of the general plan are called elements. The state requires us to have 7 elements. They're listed on the left side. And those 7 elements, so the general plan was updated was adopted in 1991. It went through 2 revisions, one in 1996 and the other in 2005. And these were just sort of technical updates, updating data, the facts, changing some things. Oakley incorporated at the end of the 90s, so everything referring to Oakley as a planning area was taken out. Just that sort of update, but it wasn't comprehensive. So most of the elements are old, except for the housing element. That is required to be updated on a schedule, and the county's housing element was updated last in 2015. General plans are allowed to have, by state law, any other elements that the local jurisdiction deems necessary. So the county general plan has 2 optional elements listed on the left or on the right. We know the growth management element, that is a requirement of Measure J, and then the public facilities and services element. So we have a total of 9 elements in the county general plan. The new general plan will incorporate 4 new themes. And when we started this process in December of 2017, we went to the Board of Supervisors for direction. And we explained that really the general plan is light on these four themes here. Economic development, there's hardly anything in the document about that. Sustainability, hardly anything about that, given the vintage. Hardly anything about community health. And then environmental justice, there really isn't anything. But that particular one is a statutory requirement. There's a new law just a couple years old called SB 1000 that requires all the cities and counties in California to incorporate environmental justice into their general plan. You can either have an element or you can incorporate it throughout, but it has to be there. And for anyone who doesn't know what environmental justice is, that is the definition according to the California Government Code. I'll just give a second to read that there. So why is the general plan important? Well, it affects all these things listed here, how everyone uses their property. It affects how we get to and from our jobs, the number of types and jobs in our community through the land use designations, the appearance and feel of our neighborhoods. It affects how roads are designed and improved, the quality of parks and how many there are, the risks to property from natural hazards. You know, the general plan can say you can't build, you know, on that earthquake fault or in that flood zone, or to what intensity you can build, and how cultural and natural resources are going to be conserved, among other things. These are the major things that the general plan does. So the most familiar element of part of the general plan, I'll say, because element has a certain meaning in this context, is the land use map. This is the thing that people may be familiar with. And so on this particular map, everything in gray is incorporated land, and everything that has color is the unincorporated county. So it's about 450 square miles of jurisdiction that we have. The two main things that the general plan does in terms of development is it dictates the density of housing. So all these different colors mean something. The largest, I mean, the easiest to see, the blue, that's watershed lands. That's around Los Vaqueros and then East Bay Muds reservoirs in the western part of the county. The green, the brighter green, and it might show up better on the screen down here, but the brighter green is Parks and Rec. That's not only your neighborhood parks, but also Mount Diablo State Park, regional parklands owned by the East Bay Regional Park District. The agricultural core, let me see, is the area here in the eastern part of the county between Brentwood and Discovery Bay. And then this other color of green is agricultural lands, which is a lot of land in the county. That's just sort of your dry farming, your grazing. Maybe it's not used for agriculture at all. Maybe it's pasture land. It's sort of just that other land that's out there. The ag core, I should point out, that's more row crops, orchards, things like that. Then we have the blue. These are public and semi-public areas. So this one is Military Ocean Terminal Concord. And then the Iron House Sanitary District owns all of Jersey Island, which is why it's all blue. But then we have Buchanan Airport, and there are many camp parks down here. Those are probably your largest examples. The California Aqueducts beginning right down here, and Byron Airport. So those are the easiest ones to see, but at a smaller scale, you start seeing all the other colors that are in the legend, all the various densities of housing, types of commercial and industrial development. You see a lot of purple, of course, near the top. That's heavy industry, your refineries, chemical plants, and such. And then mixed-use designations are also spread throughout the county. So the number of housing units, that's the residential density in those kind of yellow and brown colors listed on the left side of the legend. And then we get into our commercial industrial intensity, floor area ratio, and those are your purples and reds that are on the map. So next is the zoning code. If you think the general plan is old, the zoning code was adopted in 1947 and has never gone through a comprehensive update. It's been updated from time to time, responding to statutory requirements or because there was an issue that needed to be dealt with, or perhaps a supervisor wanted something incorporated, but it's never really been updated. And so if you want to know what Contra Costa County looked like in 1947, you should read our zoning code, because it allows things like explosives plants by right, because there was one in Hercules. That's how the town or the city got its name. Refineries, of course, chemical plants, and all those sorts of uses. But then, of course, it doesn't include a lot of the other uses that we see today in modern zoning codes. So snapshot of Contra Costa in 1947 is this document. So the zoning code implements the general plan. The general plan is the highest level of land use regulation. The zoning code implements it, so it gets down to a finer level. So for example, you may have a general plan designation that says commercial. Well, your zoning will say whether it's retail business or neighborhood business. Are these going to be big box stores versus your, downtown Walnut Creek or neighborhood serving businesses? That's the level of detail that the zoning code gets to. That's where you start talking about setbacks, height limitations, parking requirements, sign requirements, that sort of thing. So we're updating the zoning code as well, because you can't have a modern general plan and a 70-year-old zoning code. The other document is the Climate Action Plan. Now, this was actually only adopted by the county in 2015, but that first cap set goals for 2020, for climate reductions in 2020, because that was the first state goal, was to get to 1990 levels of greenhouse gas emissions by 2020. There are more aggressive state goals now, and also the cap won't integrate well with the general plan when it's updated. So we have to update the cap as well. The reasons really are listed at the bottom here. State law has changed. There's new reduction strategies for greenhouse gas emissions, better understanding of resilience and adaptation, new technologies, and of course, as I said, integrating it into the general plan is important. So while it's a new document, it also is being updated. And then finally, an environmental impact report for the whole project. EIR will look at the environmental, it's a program, EIR. It'll look at the potential impacts of these policy changes that are in these three documents. So here is the schedule. We are now in fall of 2019. We are working on community profiles. In fact, we have a meeting tonight for Kensington and East Richmond Heights, where we're introducing their profiles to the community, getting feedback. One of the things that I've always thought is a real shortcoming of the county general plan is that it has a laundry list of policies, in the several hundred of them, but there's no real vision articulated in the document. I've always thought, I've been there 18 years, and you will read the policies for a particular area, but I think you still walk away saying, what are we actually trying to achieve here? So what we're doing with this general plan is the various communities, unincorporated communities, will have a profile, and that profile will give historical context, explain what the community is about, give demographic information, photos. It talks about the natural hazards that community faces, and that's going to have guiding principles, policies, and actions for that community. So someone can look at it and say, all right, for Kensington, here's what we're trying to achieve. For Discovery Bay, here's what we're trying to achieve. So that is where we are now, fall 2019. Drafting the general plan and zoning code will continue for a while, along with county or with the new climate action plan. We hope that the draft will be out in a few months. We hope that the draft general plan will be out. The EIR will be out. It's actually being worked on right now, but it would hopefully be on the street by summer of 2020. And if all goes according to plan, we'd be in review and adoption of these documents in winter 2020. So about a little over a year from now is when we hope to have them adopted. Yeah.
Will, just as a matter of curiosity, are other populous counties in the state going through a similar process?
I don't know the list off the top of my head. I know San Bernardino County is going through it. I don't know all the counties. I know that in our own county, though, Pleasant Hill, Pittsburgh, and I think there's one more city that are currently updating their general plan as well.
Oakley.
Is it Oakley? I was going to say Oakley. So there's at least three, and part of the reason, and I did kind of skip over this, is that there's been so much statutory change in the last few years, whether it's over climate change with SB 1000 with environmental justice, of course, 743 and how we're looking at transportation and vehicle miles traveled versus LOS. I think a lot of people are realizing that it's just that all these things are coming together at one time, not to mention all of the housing bills that are being passed, and that the state, of course, is changing the way we do planning. We did the suburban sprawl thing for 60 years. And so the state is changing the way we're doing it. The general plans have to adapt to that. So I think we'll probably be seeing a few more of them in the county itself relatively soon here.
Thank you.
So opportunities for public involvement, there are many. The best one is envisioncontracasta2040.org. That is our website. It is fantastic. You should really go and check it out. It is a great resource. All of the public meetings are on, actually, well, all kinds of information is on there. Let me go down through the rest and I'll come back to it. So we have our community meetings. Those are happening all across the county, literally from end to end, from Kensington to Bethel Island to Byron to Crockett and all points in between. We are going to the unincorporated communities and seeing what the people think, what's working for them, what isn't, what they'd like to see over the next 20 years. Open houses. We originally planned to have 9 of those, 3 sets of 3, Central, East, and West County. We had the first round, and it was a major disappointment. We only had 50 people show up to the 3 meetings combined, even though on Nextdoor alone, we posted it and over 30,000 people saw the post. To have 50 show up probably wasn't the best use of the county's money. And so we're looking at other ways to engage. We've actually talked to CCTA about their telephone town halls that they've conducted. That might be one way. Or maybe some good old-fashioned advertising. So we're going to look at other ways to engage with that slot. We probably won't be having any more open houses. Next are the focused meetings. So those 4 themes I talked about earlier, economic development, environmental justice, community health, and sustainability. We're going to have meetings just about those. In fact, the first one, well, we had one with the County Workforce Development Board. That was one of our economic development meetings. But the next one is November 18th in Richmond. We're calling it our Environmental Justice Collaboration, our first one. And that's going to be a big meeting where we hope to have lots of community members, stakeholders who are particularly interested in environmental justice and community health come. And of course, we're having it in Richmond. The first meeting in Richmond not only is it accessible by BART, but of course, West County is where we have a lot of these facilities, the refineries and such. Sustainability Commission is another body. There was a meeting of the County Sustainability Commission on Monday night, just 2 days ago. And they are tasked primarily with the Climate Action Plan and environmental justice portion of this project. The County Planning Commission meets every other Tuesday. We'll be going to them from time to time for updates, and of course, the County Board of Supervisors. So, and actually, I guess I just went through this slide, giving a little more detail on what these different types of meetings are about. The website, excuse me, is I do want to go back to that because the website includes all the documents that we're creating. They're posted there. There's a calendar. All the meetings are posted there. You can sign up there for the mailing list and receive e-blasts and email updates about meetings or when documents are made available. It's a great resource. One of the things we like to draw people's attention to on the website is this called the Briefing Book. It is an online compendium of information about Contra Costa County. It is, I guarantee there's more information in this document than you've ever known about Contra Costa County. And it deals with all sorts of topics, a lot of them similar in name to the actual elements of the general plan. So we have land use and mobility, environmental justice, hazards, economic development, and so on and so forth. But you go to the briefing book, you hit one of the blue tabs across the top here to select that whichever topic you want. And then on the left side, you scroll and you see the text. And then the maps on the right are interactive and will change as you go through the text. So sometimes it's a map, sometimes it's a photograph that matches the text you're reading. And then you can zoom in on the maps. There's actually should point out the legend is here. You hit this little button and the legend pops out. But the maps are interactive. Tons of great information about Contra Costa County. And then the online engagement. This is actually a bit of an old slide. We've redone the online engagement since this slide was made. It's much better now. You can go and go to, there's a map. That part is still there. You go to the map, you can put a pin in a particular place in the county, say what you like or don't like about it, what needs improvement, or, county, keep your hands off, leave it as it is. You can upload a picture, all sorts of things. You can put suggestions on there. People have put suggestions on, and then there's a thumbs up or a thumbs down as others go on and can indicate, oh yeah, I like that idea, or no, that's a horrible idea, don't do that. So there's all sorts of online engagement. I really encourage everybody to go to the website and participate in that as well. And of course, there's the sign up for the email list. And so that concludes my presentation. There's actually a lot more to it, but I wanted to leave some time for questions. And here's all of my contact information.
Ed?
Just a general question. How do you integrate the work that you're doing with the various jurisdictions that you're within the county?
And there are a lot of them. So especially for the county. So for cities, some cities in particular. So I'm from Pleasant Hill, and it's easy for us. We have a couple water districts. We have a sewer district, a school district. The county spans all the water districts and all the sewer districts and all the school districts, or pretty close to it. Of course, the 19 cities, bodies like CCTA, many state agencies. So how are we integrating with that? We have not gotten to that more formal part of the process yet. Where we are now is talking to the communities, where we want to come to these other agencies with something. And so the content we're developing right now and going to these communities will help us actually have a document when we start more formal engagement with the numerous bodies throughout the county. It will start primarily through the notice of preparation, the CEQA process when we send that out to everybody. But we want to have something there when we send the notice of preparation out. And it's really going to vary. Some places there probably won't be much interaction, and then in some places there will be probably quite a bit. Just right here where Concord, Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill, and the county all come together. There might be some discussion about land uses and what to do. But, that when you get out to the eastern part of the county, much of that area, I'm going to go back to the land use element map, we border all of this land out here, borders 3 cities, right? I mean, we get up to Pittsburgh in here, but really we have Oakley and Brentwood and Antioch. But there's a lot of land, and much of our jurisdiction really is just out there not related to anybody. And so to answer your question, we will have a formal engagement. We did this 3 years ago. One of the requirements of Measure L with the urban limit line was that there was a midterm review, and we reached out to all of the cities. We prepared some growth projections and reached out and said, okay, what does everyone think? And we got varying levels of responses. Some cities said, yeah, that looks pretty good. Go with that. And others had parcel by parcel comments. And we think that we'll follow the same model of engaging the cities as we did for the urban limit line review 3 years ago.
Edward?
Yes, thank you, Will. I was going to start off by saying that the one thing that was very heartening to see at the beginning of your presentation is, whereas, as you said, there's a lot of legislation and changes and things, and a lot of the pounding on the table has been just housing, housing, housing. Your first bullet was economic development in those additional elements. And I heard you say something that, at least to this committee, I think is super important, which was you were saying the economic development ties to how many jobs, what kind of variety of jobs are in the area, whatnot. And at least from a transportation perspective, that's a job that you don't have to commute to Santa Clara or San Francisco, to do, and that's less taxing on the highway, the west side of the county and whatnot. So anyway, I just want to say that I'm impressed that the economic development thing comes up so often in this document. You alluded to there had been a first focused meeting about this, that has already sort of passed. Is there, on the website, is there some sort of either transcript, summary, or recording of that original focused meeting about economic development?
I think we have notes on that meeting. Now, that one was actually a presentation similar to this at the
Okay.
Workforce Development Board.
Okay.
There were many more people in the room, and we had questions that were asked, and economic development is the one that has been a little bit of a conundrum for us, because the county, everyone knows that we have a problem in this county with everyone
Leaving the
leaving
county during the day and coming back at night. Yeah.
And so, but if we look at the map here, and we know that the eastern part of the county is where we'd love to have more jobs.
Exactly.
And to have people either maybe staying there, working where they live, or if you can get someone, even if you can get someone in Walnut Creek to not be getting on 24 West, they get on 242 and 4 East, and that's still capacity for 24 West, right? Every car taking off and going the other way. But as you can see, the county doesn't have much ability to affect this because most of our land out there is outside the urban limit line and rural. So most of that growth will be in the cities if it's to occur. We have a couple opportunities. Byron Airport is one inside the urban limit line. Discovery Bay has about 550 acres on its east side inside the urban limit line, and some miscellaneous parcels inside the line. But and then Bethel Island is inside the urban limit line, but it's also a dozen feet below sea level. Probably not the best place to have a job center. So we are keenly aware of it, and I think when we talk about things like the northern waterfront, because if we look here, we also see that while the county has been wanting to take a leadership role in the northern waterfront economic development initiative, we still see that when you actually look from end to end, a lot of it's gray, which means it's in the cities.
Yep.
Or it's MOTCO, or it's protected,
Yeah.
or it's protected. So we have Crockett Rodeo and the refinery here, and then we get down to Hercules and Richmond down here, of course. But most of the land is not in our jurisdiction. And so it is so when we talk about economic development, we want to be supportive of it. We want to take a leadership role in the county. But a lot of what will happen is in the cities. But we do have pockets. We do have places where the land has been is underutilized. One of the things we've been hearing in these community meetings, and we've had somewhere around 30 now, of all types of meetings, including the board and the planning commission, is that a lot of these unincorporated communities feel passed over, and sort of that they were left to sort of wither on the vine. That the cities, in their rush to incorporate and annex in the 60s and the 70s, they passed over the parts they didn't want, and then they've just kind of been left there.
They're the leftovers.
They're and I don't want to say abused, but passed over. And so there are a lot of people in these unincorporated communities who want the county to give them attention again. And there really are places, and while they might not be job centers, it's places where you can create little urban centers, maybe like maybe in Terra Hills on San Pablo Avenue, or possibly in Pacheco at the intersection of Pacheco Boulevard and Center. Where maybe there could be some more there in terms of neighborhood serving businesses, maybe a little bit more density. Then you have places like Crockett where there's a town there that has had some of the life choked out of it because our zoning is so restrictive. It was written for sprawling suburbs, right? It wasn't written for towns that were already there. So when your single-family zoning, when your smallest, most dense single-family zoning is 6,000 square feet, but you have 2,500 square foot lots, what happens is, we apply this zoning that, it requires 10-foot setbacks on the side to homes that were built with 18-inch setbacks. You know, it requires 20 feet in the front where they have 5 feet. So every time they want to come in to do something, they need a variance. It costs them money, it costs them time. When someone wants to open a business, we tell them that there are parking requirements they can't ever meet because there's already a whole town there with buildings. Same thing in Byron, where they have a main street. You know, for people who've been out to Byron or who haven't been out to Byron, there's a town there. There's a little main street there with a lot of empty lots and vacant storefronts. And we hear the same thing. People come into the county and they're told, well, you have to have the parking, you have to have this. You physically can't provide it. And so part of this is to put an end to all that and make the zoning fit these communities, make the general plan fit these communities. So we probably won't be creating office parks and huge job centers, but we might be creating little pockets of commerce here and there for people.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things is, and I'm not claiming to have any insight, no crystal ball on this, but I mean, one of the things that is always at the back of my mind is, what are the exact motivators that would exist behind the scenes that we don't get right now that would make a, you know, like a Cisco or a whatever, want to open a campus, a satellite campus for their employees that are already driving 2.5 hours each way, you know? What's the incentive that's missing for them? And is it communication? Is it infrastructure? Is it transportation? And I generally think it might be transportation in the sense that if you know, we could wave a magic wand and there was a bullet train between, you know, Brentwood and San Jose, then executives might really look at it as like, well, we could have an office out there, and if we needed to be on site and talking to employees or have them come to the mothership to have meetings in the afternoon or training or something, there would be that vehicle for that to happen. To that extent, if transportation turns out to be one of those magic fuels, there may be something in that Byron Airport thing where somebody could hop in a helicopter or a small private craft over in San Jose and be over at another location, a large campus in the Byron area, and not have to worry about fighting the traffic in between anything, right? BART delays or anything. I just put this out there as ideas, not as I know what's going on and I have the solution for everything. But economic development's key.
And I think people in the eastern part of the county recognize Byron Airport as an asset. And when it was first constructed, everyone is familiar, I think, with Buchanan and the problems that Buchanan has of being surrounded by cities and the restrictions and the complaints that, you know, and it really, the county established Byron Airport as a place for aviation. And that was all fine. But now there's definitely, I'm actually working in a parallel project to the general plan update on a project to loosen up our zoning and our general plan at the airport to maybe allow some more commerce, to allow some things that aren't allowed. And the supervisor for the area, Supervisor Burgess, is definitely on board with that.
There was some other small community that came and talked to us. Their city engineer, and I can't remember who it was, but one of their things that they were possibly pinning some hopes on was the fact that they had an old rail station that stopped through the town, and so maybe, you know, Amtrak could be, you know, coming through there or something, some sort of mass transportation option or whatnot. Does anyone remember who that was that came and presented to us? It was a very small municipality. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, I won't take up any more of the committee's time, but I just wanted to mention, yeah, I think transportation might be a key piece to that.
I'm not sure because I probably wasn't there at the time, but if it was City of Oakley, they're getting a station in, I think, 20 or 2021 through their funding, and I think that would run farther. It could, but the thing about Amtrak and some of these things, they're on dedicated rail lines. It would have to be something very near to Byron Airport to satisfy that requirement, I presume. Yeah.
There is the Makoko line that runs straight through Byron. There's a train line. In fact, you can see it almost. It runs it runs like this. This is J4. I mean, here's the airport, and here's the town, and this right here is the rail line, owned by Southern Pacific, I believe, and it's. I'm sorry. Is it UP? And you can go online and read anecdotes about, they're going to start reusing it again. They won't, but who knows? But it does go literally straight through Byron.
I had just a comment. I think one thing that I'm not sure train lines, but I do think that recently I saw in Concord Airport, there's flights out of there from a small private, I think it's called Suite X or
Jet
something.
Suite.
And they fly into Las Vegas, and it's very reasonable. They have a system where you can park there, and then you have Uber and Lyft drop-off points. If something could be built out like that in Byron, maybe the county could take an initiative in the future or something. I think that might, it'll help. It'll, as far as having the land adjacent to it being used for parking and transit, and maybe not as much as trains, but as much as if you could even have set facilities where people could park their cars. If you had 100 parking, somebody might think twice. They say, maybe we can, park here and then fly in, get on a private jet. So, yeah.
I'm not sure that the current runways at Byron can accommodate those types of planes. I'm not certain. One way or the other. They're definitely shorter than what's at Buchanan. But the airport was approved with provision to extend them.
Thank you.
I think there's military jets or of that style fly out of that airport.
Are you talking about the Patriot jet team?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're acrobatic group like the Blue Angels, but not flying F-18s. It's it's a lower performance plane, but you're right. They have their hangar there. They do fly out of Byron. They do fly at Fleet Week. I mean, if you've been there, you may have seen them fly, and that's their home base.
So,
Any more
thank you
questions
very
for
much
Will?
for your presentation. Just so you know, I returned from Alaska, and there are public phone booths around. I have it on my phone here. I had to take a picture, and I showed it to a friend of mine, and I said, "Do you know what these are?" No? Come on. No? I said, public phones. What? So, yes, and people use it. Alaska, just so you know. I was privileged to attend a meeting that the Economic Development Group presented, and they've done an extensive study on the traffic pattern that is emerging between now and, I guess, 2040. Yeah. Did I say that? Yeah. And so I don't know if you are involved with them and meeting with them, you might be interested in what they have to say and what that study had to reveal. And one of the things is that that really struck me is that workers are increasing their commute times for cheaper housing. They don't have a problem getting the car and staying in there. That was interesting. So, Ed, when you say, what's the answer? Wave a magic wand and say affordable housing. Well, easier said than done. But there's an extensive opportunity out there, and I'm encouraged by what you're saying as far as, thinking out of the box and looking at this and bringing it up to this century. And you've got Federal Glover out there who's championing that kind of economic development. So good luck to you. Thanks.
I am Kent Moriarty from the city of Pinole. I was just wondering if you guys will be actively soliciting input from people that live in cities rather than just unincorporated areas. Because as an example, I think, I live in Pinole, and for me to ride my bike to San Pablo, I'm going to go through El Sobrante, so I might care about the transportation element of the plans.
Sure. We we have focused our outreach on the unincorporated areas. And one of the things about land use is it's just not apparent to the general public that you can cross the street and the rules completely change. What's allowed on this side of the street isn't allowed on that side of the street. And why is that? And we've mainly focused now those open house events that I talked about, that we did do for the whole county. And so that was one of the reasons, was to try and get people from cities to engage. And of course, these are all public processes, and we would never turn anyone away. But we also don't want people to come to meetings and say, well, can you do something about this? Oh no, that's not our jurisdiction. Then they've wasted their evening coming to our meeting. So I think it is a conundrum for us a bit. We don't want to waste people's time. We don't want to lead them down, thinking that we can do things that we can't. But you're right that and that's, I think, where hopefully the engagement of the cities themselves will hopefully bridge that they would know the things that are important to their residents and be able to convey that to us.
Yeah.
In a perfect world.
I don't think the cities do. I feel like I would want a voice in that general plan for my county, and I wouldn't just assume that my city's going to represent me. And I would want a chance to give my input, and I would, at least as a citizen of a city, want to know what's going on. And so your idea about billboard, you didn't say billboards, you said advertising, maybe that lets people know that something's cooking and gives people a chance to have some input.
We did have a billboard, actually, on 680 for a while, for a month. The electronic one there near the refinery in Martinez, it's maybe not the best location, but we got it for free. So we took advantage of it. But I agree. Obviously, traffic problems don't stop at city-county borders, nor does air pollution, nor do housing costs. These things are interrelated. So it's a point well taken. I think that we might do some good old-fashioned newspaper spreads and things like that, and maybe on Facebook or pay to have Envision Contra Costa higher up in a search engine, or things like that. We're working on it for sure. And then there are other things we've tried to do. Just in our own permit center, it's up on our boards. So the contractors, developers who come in, they obviously don't only work in the county; they work in cities. So then hopefully they know about it. They talk to others. When we talk to people like the East Bay Leadership Council, Workforce Development Board, some of these bodies that don't that are more regional. But yeah, I agree. We do need to somehow engage people over the border, the city-county border.
Okay. Will, thank you very much. I see no more questions arising, so thank you very much for your input and presentation this evening.
Thank you. And just once again, envisioncontracosta2040.org. Please visit and tell all your friends and family as well. And I'll leave a stack of business cards here also with the website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we now have a presentation by Matt Kelly on the transportation expenditure plan.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to give a brief update on the status of the transportation expenditure plan, but since we do have some new members here tonight, I will get into it a little bit further. Basically, what we've got going here, the rest of the committee was briefed by our Deputy Director of Projects, Tim Hale, back in June, I believe, on our transportation expenditure plan. And basically what a transportation expenditure plan is, well, currently we are operating under Measure J, which is a half-cent sales tax for transportation in Contra Costa County. That's the reason, really, we exist here. And an expenditure plan was put together that became Measure J. That the measure is what was put on the ballot, but the plan is what's in Measure J. We are now putting together a new plan for a new sales tax measure that will hopefully go on the ballot in March of next year. What's been going on? So the plan has been under development since June. It's been a pretty tight time frame. Our board basically adopted the draft plan in August, and since then we've been our staff has been going out to all the cities and the county, so the 19 towns and cities, and then the county over the last couple of months to present it to the councils. And what we need from the councils around the county is for a majority of the cities and a majority of the population to approve it. So basically, if Clayton, El Cerrito, San Pablo, all the smaller cities all approved it, and the Antioch, Richmond, Concords didn't approve it, we'd be in a bit of trouble. But as you can see from your handout, as of last night, every single city has approved it. So it will be going now to the County Board of Supervisors. They are the ones responsible for actually putting it on the ballot. So we kind of developed it, got it approved, and now handed off to the Board of Supervisors to place on the ballot. The Board of Supervisors has already approved the plan, so we assume they will be voting next month to put it on the ballot. But we shall see. But we assume that will be happening. And then from there, it gets handed off to, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, the campaign. Basically, at that point, CCTA is hands off. We cannot promote it. We cannot really do much about the plan. It's in the campaign's hands. The campaign is usually made up of a group of folks that really want this to happen and pass, and they start raising money and promoting the sales tax measure at that point. So while we can still talk about it, we'll do that as much as we can. And I just wanted to go through the document real quick. First, let me tell you that it's at our website, ccta.net, and /the plan. And I'm going to open it up here. I'm just going to go through it real quick. My main goal tonight was to let you know that all the cities had approved it. We had sent you the schedule last month in case you wanted to stop by one of the meetings and add some comments. I went to a couple of the meetings. It was great to see people turn up and speak out in support of the plan. At every meeting I went to, the folks that turned out en masse were the labor organizations. So they are really supporting this measure because they know it will create jobs. We're going to present an economic analysis of the measure to our board next week that'll kind of highlight the number of jobs that will actually be created if the measure does pass. So the plan, it's past plans have been text heavy. This one does have a lot of text, but we tried to make it as graphically intense as possible because that's kind of what people can more quickly relate to. But let me just scroll through this real quick. The guiding principles of the expenditure plan: relieve traffic congestion, accountability and transparency. That's a lot of what this committee is about. This committee would be extensively, it'll be, let's call it remodeled and updated to reflect what's in the new measure. And there would be more oversight by this committee on kind of day-to-day financial aspects of the authority. So transit first, basically, we're going to be putting a lot more money into transit. projects are performance-based, so we will be looking at the performance of a project before we fund it. And that performance could be a variety of performance measures, including, greenhouse gas reductions or congestion reduction, things like that. Balanced and equitable, we want it to, have positive impacts across the county, across all income levels. We want it to protect the environment. We want it to provide economic opportunities, as was commented on earlier with the county's general plan update. We think transportation improvements can lead to economic improvements around the county. So I think you're right, those two are linked. A commitment to growth management, that's something you guys focus on in this committee. Basically that the growth would take place inside the urban limit line, and that growth in one jurisdiction would not impact unduly downstream jurisdictions. We would maximize available funding. Basically, whatever funding we get, we would leverage to bring in state, regional, federal funds that wouldn't normally be available to areas without those matching funds. There'd be public participation and a commitment to technology and innovation. And one, as you know, those of you who've seen our director, Randy Osaki, speak, he is focused on technology and innovation, and actually he's promised to come speak at our next meeting here, so we'll be bringing him in. And what an interesting thing that this measure will do is every, I believe, I forget if it's 5 or 10 years, we will be kind of taking a look at the measure and what's in the measure and make sure that it still reflects what's going on in society. Measure J, when it was voted on back in 2004, there were a lot of things we didn't foresee back then that we wish we could have put in the measure. This measure will be a bit more flexible in that, if there's a project that wants to, I'm just going to say, put in telephone booths. We're going to say, hey, what are telephone booths? We have cell phones. So kind of that type of idea where if there's new technology available, we want to build projects with that new technology, not with old technology. So I'll just go through this real quick. Basically, the funding summary focuses on relieving traffic congestion on highways and interchanges, making transit, that includes bus, ferry, passenger rail, BART, safer, cleaner, and more reliable and more frequent. Provide accessible, safe transportation for children, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. That's kind of that equitable, accessible component of the plan, and improve transportation in our communities. That's not just on the big highways, but at the local level. As you know, you guys approved the checklist that directs 18% of the measure funds back to the cities for street repair, bike lanes, things like that, pothole fixing. That will continue under the new measure. And here's just I'm not going to go through this in detail. I encourage you to go look at it. But these are the main categories and the amounts of funding. Basically, overall it's going to bring in $3.6 billion. That's at 3.608 at the bottom. And here's how things are divvied up. So we're kind of looking at things by corridor. So for State Route 242 and Highway 4, the EBART corridor, there's about $700 million for that. It includes improving access to the Byron Airport. That's one of those economic development factors. It would try and bring BART to that Brentwood Intermodal Station that we talked about. There's a lot of money in there for that, $100 million for that. Each corridor, there's focusing on improving reliability, relieving transit, and relieving congestion and improving transit. So for 680 and 24, basically we would focus on transit on the 680 corridor, really coming up with a really robust express bus system in the corridor that would get you to those jobs down in the San Ramon Valley, would get people from the San Ramon Valley up to BART, things like that. In the West County area, I-80 and 580, we would be working on improving traffic along I-80, but really focusing on moving transit down I-80 because we can't really expand for the single occupant vehicle, but we may be able to expand it for transit. We also want to increase the ferry service that is already a huge success out of Richmond, and also improve the gateway over to Marin County, the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, which in the last several years, actually just the last 3 or 4 years, has become a major choke point. And that's one of those housing jobs issues. All the jobs are in Marin. Marin doesn't want to build housing. They instead rely upon Solano and Contra Costa County residents to work their jobs over there. And now that's being felt at the toll plaza at the bridge with 3 and 4 mile backups each morning. So we've got some money that we're going to devote to fixing that bottleneck there. So that's really a 5-minute overview of what's in the plan. Oh, and then let me mention these kind of countywide categories. Local road modernization, improve access to jobs centers and housing, increase bus services, improve walking and biking on streets and trails around the county, accessible transportation, that includes paratransit for seniors, and cleaner, safer BART. We would build on what West County is doing, where they provide free bus passes to students who also qualify for free lunches. So we would expand that countywide. That's had a big impact over there, especially around schools. One, reduces traffic around schools, but it also gets kids to school. And we found that just the truancy rate has dropped dramatically since that program started. Basically, parents were choosing between feeding their kids and sending them to school, and things like that. There were all kinds of crazy trade-offs that people were having to make in some of these communities, and we think that's just not fair, and so we want to continue that funding, but around the county. And then, of course, reduce emissions and improve air quality. So, that's $3.6 billion in a nutshell. I encourage you to read the plan. There's a whole lot more to it than this. It kind of diagrams a lot of those improvements I just mentioned and goes into a lot more detail. But this is just what it looks like. Check it out yourself, and you're always free to ping me if you have any specific questions. But we really want you to know about this so you can support it if that's your stance. And but at least you'll know what's going into it when you start hearing the campaign promoting it in probably starting in December through March. So I can certainly take any questions you have on this.
Matt, I do have one question. Are we talking about 2/3 or 50+1?
It is 2/3. If we were 50%, we would have easily passed Measure X back in 2016. It had about 64.5 or so percent, so it was within about 2.5% passing. So we really just need a few more people to get out there and vote, and it would.
I remember at the meeting in June, if I can remember correctly, that there was some comment made, a staff comment, that we don't have a Caldecott Tunnel project. How do you, just kind of talk about that if you don't mind for a minute. How are you looking at that situation?
Yeah, so Measure J passed because, as you're right, it had a fourth bore of the Caldecott Tunnel. It had widening Highway 4 to Antioch, EBART to Antioch, all these projects that people go, that's going to benefit my commute. I'm voting for that. We don't have big projects. We do have the 684 interchange, which if you live in Central County is probably a big project for you, but it's not as big as any of those projects I just mentioned that were part of Measure J. So really we're trying to put something everywhere. We're trying to increase funding of all modes, so not just the roads, not just BART, but buses, and maybe not even buses, maybe shuttles serving your local neighborhood. In the future, those may be autonomous shuttles. It's improving your bike route to your local BART station or the bike route to your downtown, so you can participate in community activities without getting in your car. You can get to San Francisco without getting in your car. Things like that. We're just trying to, we want there to be something in this for everyone, and we're hoping that's what the campaign will focus on. Plus the return to source funds that you guys deal with as part of the checklist. That's going to fix potholes in front of your house, things like that. Something that hopefully everybody can relate to.
If you need a high visibility project, I advocate for engaging Musk's boring project to go from underground under Ignacio Valley from Pittsburgh to Walnut Creek. There you go. There's yours.
We haven't yet reached out to Elon and crew, but yet, like I said, we'll reevaluate things as technologies change, and we'll let, I think it's Chicago or Vegas, I think both those have contracted with him. We'll let him, we'll see how things go there.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? If not, thank you very much, Matt, for that update. Okay, reports. The Transportation Authority holds various meetings throughout the month. Has anyone attended and wishes to give a brief summary of what you heard? If not, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, thank you. Next item is members' comments or staff comments. Any, Ed?
Larry, I have a really fast one. Ed Miller from Clayton. I read within the last couple of days an article came through, I don't know, on Facebook or something, but there's some sort of exploratory study being done between the transit agencies related to the Clipper card. And of course, this transcends beyond sort of just being able to use your Clipper card on one transit service and another. It's more like thinking along the lines of if somebody has to go across multiple services, like maybe they start in in East County, but then they got to go through this bus service and use BART for a little ways, and then they're over in Alameda, but they're trying to get to San Francisco, and maybe they cross 4 different systems that are all regional. And so I think one of the people in the articles lived up in Marin or something, and they said, if I were to try and take a public transportation round trip for my job for one day, it would cost more than buying across the various services in total, would cost more than if I bought a bus ticket down to Southern California. So, and so this study is something along the lines of recognizing a manner in which they could facilitate a discount across all, and basically plan an end-to-end route across the 4 or 5 services or whatever, and then make a rational amount of, a rational fare for that trip, and then split that money in a rational way across those regional transportation systems. So I don't have a URL or a ton of information about that, but I encourage members to maybe seek that information about that study out. It definitely focused on the Clipper card, so I suspect if you search the news cycle for Clipper and study, you would happen upon this article. It's been out in the last 2 or 3 days. Okay.
If I can find that, I'll add it to next month's, what do we call that item? News clippings. Yeah.
Or maybe reach out to BART's Clipper Card manager, Patricia Nelson, and see if she'd be willing to come in and speak to us.
Yeah, they've come. It's been several years now, so I think it's time. I think last time they were still talking about getting County Connection in the system. So now they're working on next generation. So I think that'd be a good presentation.
Okay. Any other comments by members?
I just have a question, actually, and a concern that our representative from San Pablo is never present. Are you, as chair, planning on asking our staff to contact them and free up that seat for somebody else?
Well, we've touched on the subject over the past couple months, and Matt, maybe you can update us on staff actions.
So per our bylaws, members are allowed to miss 4 consecutive meetings. After the 4th one, we'll contact the member, ask them if they're still interested, and if they're not, we contact the city or town and ask them if they'd like to appoint a new person. So she is still within the window. Should she miss another meeting, we'll get in contact.
Okay. All right.
I have a procedural question.
Yes.
So when I was chair, people would call me Madam Chair. What do I call you? Mr. Chair?
Just call me Larry.
Chair Larry?
Chair Larry.
Okay.
Anything but Madam. Okay. Correspondence and news clippings. There is attached an item from Marin. There's no point reading through it, of course, so, please read that at your convenience, and I think that's just about it. Does anyone have any future agenda items that they would like to see included?
I do.
Yolanda.
I have the contact information for the Economic Development Group that did an extensive study at the beginning of this year on transportation and what that looks like for all the counties and the job growth. So I would like to give that to you, Matt, and see if you can reach out and have them come over and give us that overview. I found it phenomenally interesting, and especially what that traffic pattern looks like now and what it's going to be looking like in 2040, or what they're projecting, given the fact that there is increased housing that continues to flood this area.
Okay. Any further items anyone wants to raise at this time? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.